In the cold corridors of Hampton Court Palace, a queen was slowly departing from the world, just 12 days after bringing England its greatest hope. A prince. Church bells rang out joyfully announcing the birth of Edward VI, but in a darkened room, Jane Seymour quietly faced death. Her body was exhausted, ravaged by complications that Tudor medicine could not treat. Jane had accomplished what no wife before her had given Henry VIII a male heir, securing the dynasty. But the price she paid was not glory or gratitude. It was cold oblivion. As Henry VIII immersed himself in joy beside his newborn son, Jane was left behind, becoming a mere shadow after completing her mission. History remembers her as Henry's most successful wife, but behind that lies a cruel truth. She was only valuable while useful, and once her biological duty was done, she was deemed meaningless. Jane's story is a testament to the ruthless nature of the Tudor court, where women, even queens, were valued solely by their ability to bear sons. By 1536, Henry VIII was a king obsessed with the fear of lacking a legitimate male heir. His two previous wives, Catherine of Aragon and Anne Boleyn, had both failed and met tragic fates, one cast aside, the other beheaded. The court had become a dangerous arena where powerful families offered their daughters as sacrifices to appease the king's thirst for power. In this setting, Jane Seymour, a quiet lady-in-waiting, stepped forward with a plain appearance but political shrewdness. Unlike the passionate Anne Boleyn, Jane chose to present herself as the ideal Tudor woman, humble, devoted, and pious. The Seymour family from Wiltshire saw an opportunity to rise, and with cold calculation, they thrust Jane into the center of the power game, where she had to learn from her predecessor's mistakes to survive. The relationship between Jane and Henry began, while Anne Boleyn was still queen, a fact that reveals the predatory nature of the king. Jane was coached to initially refuse Henry's advances, playing the role of a virtuous maiden, which only fueled his desire. This strategy not only ignited Henry's passion, but also highlighted the contrast between her and Anne. By May 1536, as Anne faced charges of adultery and treason, Jane was already prepared to take her place. On May 19th, Anne was executed, and just 11 days later, Henry married Jane at Whitehall Palace in a private ceremony. The haste showed Henry's obsession with an heir outweighed any human emotion. Jane's wedding day should have been a triumph, but witnesses noted her trembling and pale face. She knew she was stepping into a trap that had already claimed 2 lives. As Queen Jane lived under the pressure of becoming whatever Henry desired, she learned from the fates of Catherine and Anne, remaining silent, avoiding politics, and focusing on faith and charity. The court watched her with morbid curiosity, placing bets on how long she would survive. Foreign ambassadors noted her careful words and actions a survival strategy rather than natural traits. Jane understood that any mistake could lead her to the same end as her predecessors. In early 1537, Jane's pregnancy was announced, making her the center of all attention. A healthy prince would justify Henry's break with Rome, while failure could send her down the path of Catherine and Anne. Henry monitored her closely, surrounding her with physicians and midwives under life-or-death pressure to ensure a successful birth. Jane became a prisoner in her own palace, her body no longer her own but a dynastic asset. Every aspect of her life, eating, resting, praying, was tightly controlled. Foreign ambassadors sent constant reports on her condition, knowing the child's gender would shape England's future. Pregnancy in Tudor times was a journey filled with superstition. Jane was forbidden from looking at disabled people, required to pray constantly, and watched by astrologers. Henry, in his obsession, prepared simultaneously for a prince's christening and Jane's funeral, a clear sign that dynasty outweighed affection. As the birth neared, he swung between joy and fear, his mood shifting with each report on her health. On October 9, 1537, Jane went into labor at Hampton Court Palace. The birth lasted 3 days, filled with pain and desperation. Her cries echoed through the palace as Henry waited anxiously. Physicians and midwives with limited knowledge relied on herbs and prayers. Jane's life and death struggle unfolded in a stifling room where medieval medicine was powerless against complications, now known as a breech birth. On October 12th, after nearly 3 days of agony, Edward VI was born. The baby's cries brought overwhelming joy, but Jane was left exhausted, her body severely damaged from within. Henry rejoiced upon learning his son was healthy, But that joy did not extend to his dying wife. Jane bled uncontrollably, and primitive treatments only worsened her condition. While the court celebrated the prince, Jane lay there slowly slipping into darkness, forgotten by the husband she had sacrificed everything for. Jane Seymour died on October 24, 1537, just 12 days after giving birth to Edward. Her death was not dramatic like Anne Boleyn's, but quiet like a flame slowly extinguishing. Henry reacted with cold indifference, focusing on his son's christening rather than his wife's pain. As she lay dying, he was already considering his next marriage. The court quickly turned Jane into a symbol of noble sacrifice, hiding the truth of the abandonment and medical neglect that killed her. Yet Jane's legacy did not end there. Edward VI, the heir. She traded her life for, lived only to age 15, dying without children and plunging the Tudor dynasty into chaos. Jane's sacrifice in the end did not bring the stability Henry desired. Her story serves as a warning about the cost of power, where women were seen as tools and their suffering erased to serve male ambition.